All right. Let's talk about Sean P. Diddy Combs. Yesterday, while we were on our way to the animal sanctuary, the reptile zoo, Sean P. Diddy Combs' homes were raided, both in Star Island in Florida, in Miami, and also in the Holmby Hills neighborhood, which is one of the most expensive real estate neighborhoods in the state of California, in Los Angeles. His homes were raided. His sons were in the Holmby Hills home. They were like handcuffed and stuff. It was crazy. This is, of course, coming on the heels of a sex trafficking investigation into Sean P. Diddy Combs. And we are going to... His sons were just handcuffed. I don't think they were arrested, but like that's normal. They were, He was not there. He was not at his houses. Apparently, some of the people were tracking his private jet, which may or may not have landed outside of the U.S. borders. There are some photos that came out of him potentially pacing around nervously at the Miami private jet terminal right before he allegedly, possibly fled the country and went to Antigua. Let's take a look at the story now.
News tonight, we have some new details about why federal agents may have raided mansions belonging to musician and producer Sean Diddy Combs. CNN's Carlos Suarez is outside of his Miami home for us. So what more do you know about what's behind these searches?
Well, Anderson, a law enforcement source tells my colleague, Josh Campbell, that these search warrant activities at both of Combs' homes are related to an ongoing sex trafficking investigation. However, the source would not say whether Combs is the target of this investigation, citing the sensitivity of the investigation itself. Now, agents with Homeland Security raided 2 homes belonging to Combs, one here in Miami Beach, the other in Los Angeles. The property here in Miami Beach is an 11,000 square foot property. And late tonight, we saw agents walking out of this house carrying a cardboard box as well as several bags from the second story of the property out here. Now, agents in Los Angeles could be seen walking around Combs' house there. They were processing the scene there and could be seen taking notes on a table there. Now, an official with Homeland Security here in Miami tells me that the raid that took place here happened a little bit after 3 o'clock this afternoon. And a neighbor tells me that about 30 to 40 law enforcement officers showed up to the house out here and carried out this search warrant. Again, Anderson, late word tonight from a law enforcement source who tells my colleague Josh Campbell that these search warrants that were executed is in connection with a sex trafficking investigation. However, the source would not say whether Combs himself is the target of the investigation.
And has Sean Combs commented on the searches?
Yeah, so we have reached out to...
Who could it be? It must be a coincidence that they just happened to raid both of his... It's a real strange coincidence they happen to raid both of his homes. You know what I mean? It's just... They're looking for another guy, guys. Okay? Listen, make no mistake. The fact that he's not there and we don't know where the fuck he is also shouldn't be confusing or lead to any additional speculation. Who knows, Hey, Sean, come back. We're looking for another guy. Yeah.
Of Combs. However, we have not heard back. Again, all of this played out here at around 3 o'clock this afternoon.
It's clickbait. They're just saying he had clout because he knew him. Oh, that's
immediately we were trying to get some details on exactly what was taking place, not only here in Miami and Los Angeles, but as of this late hour, we have not heard from any of Combs' representatives about the raids at either of his properties or the investigation itself.
All right, Carlos Suarez, appreciate it. Join me now, CNN legal analyst and criminal defense attorney Joey Jackson and the aforementioned Josh Campbell. So, Josh, you were part of searches like this when you were an FBI agent. What do you read into what stands out to you about this?
Well, this is all becoming a little clearer, Anderson. From the moment that we first saw those SWAT vehicles roll up to those homes, as well as mobile command posts, all of those vehicles emblazoned with the letters HSI, that was an indication for those in law enforcement that we're likely talking about sex trafficking, because HSI itself is the primary investigative arm of the Department of Homeland Security. They deal with transnational criminal groups, but they also have a robust effort underway to go after human traffickers. That involves 2 prongs, not only to rescue victims of human trafficking, but also to locate and prosecute those who may be behind the trafficking itself. And again, a source now tells me this is part of an ongoing trafficking investigation. We don't yet know what specifically they were looking for at these residences. We did see on the aerial footage dozens of law enforcement agents that were descending on both of those locations. And so we'll have to wait and see what the search warrant itself actually entailed. But again, this comes after Sean Combs has faced a series of legal troubles in the past several months, to include one accuser, for example, back in December. This was a woman who was 17 years old at the time that she alleged in 2003 that she was sexually assaulted by Combs, saying that she was sex trafficked, that she was subject to gang rape. Of course, Combs himself had denied all of that. And then finally, just last month, a former employee of Combs had alleged in a civil lawsuit that he was forced to work for Combs, forced him to procure and interact with sex workers. And this individual also saying that Sean Combs' son, Justin, was accused of soliciting prostitutes and underage girls to attend various parties and functions. Again, the Combses have denied all of that, but all of this now coming into focus about what the likely key primary target here is of federal law enforcement. That's determined whether the extent of any sex trafficking that may have occurred in these residences and who may be responsible.
So, Joey, just from a legal standpoint, would Sean Combs' attorneys at this hour now be informed about what exactly they were looking for?
Not necessarily. I mean, at some point, certainly you're going to want to, if you're the lawyers, assess, do you have a warrant? Is it valid? What specific information underlies that warrant? Where was the probable cause with respect to any type of criminality found, right? Who were the sources of that information? At some point, you'll have all of this. Remember that this is still an active and ongoing investigation. As part of discovery, if this does get into something criminal, I would have to presume the U.S. Attorney's Office is involved.
We should point out no criminal charges have been filed.
Not at all, right? This is simply an investigatory step, and at this stage of the investigation, they apparently went to a judge, right, Anderson, and said, look, we have reason to believe that indicia of criminality may lie within these residences.
So they show up with a search warrant at these houses,
Correct.
And whoever's there has to let them in.
Correct. I mean, if it's a valid warrant, presumably you have all these law enforcement officials there, you let them in, they search for what they search for, and then there's the other step. That other step being, what specifically did you find? What, if any, connection is that to any criminality? You give it to prosecutors, and it's taken from there.
And are they told what was taken from the house?
Yes, there will be a specific list of items that will ultimately...
Is it weird that the DHS is doing these raids instead of the FBI? Yes. It's not weird that the DHS is doing these instead of the FBI. It just signals like what the scope of the investigation is. Department of Homeland Security doing it means that it's there's a likelihood that it is like human trafficking or sex trafficking of an international variety. FBI usually does that as well. They engage in human trafficking cases, but I think like they will do a collaborative one. But FBI is like if it was almost internally, like if it was like domestic, right? FBI can work on international cases as well. They also do human trafficking and all the other stuff. But I think that the DHS participating in the raid, or not Homeland Security participating in the raid means that there's an international component probably. I think. FBI is interstate. If it just stays interstate, then I don't know if it would be like, it would be Homeland Security, maybe. Homeland Security suggests a massive international criminal enterprise. I mean, I think so. But maybe not. I don't know.
Ultimately be turned over to attorneys if it goes that far, which will delineate specifically what we took, what room we took it from, who was the agent or agents who secured that information, and then it'll go a step further because there'll be analysis on what items that were taken and what, if anything, in that analysis in a laboratory showed that it was connected to any type of sex trafficking, if any, right? And from there, there'll be, or there won't be, a criminal prosecution.
Joshua, I mean, when people hear the term sex trafficking, what comes to mind is moving people across borders. I mean, I assume that's not what's involved here. If that, in fact,
it's unclear
any of that went on.
Yeah, it's unclear about the extent, how global this we're talking about. Obviously, with human trafficking, that can be transnational in nature, where people are brought in from overseas.
Whoa! Listen up, big guy. I can't believe you're mentioning that like sex trafficking could be international. Excuse me. seems like these guys at CNN are doing some really fucked up shit, dude. Why would you say such a crazy thing?
But sex trafficking happens all across the United States here domestically from people who are from the United States, particularly young victims who are subjected to such depravity by individuals. And this is why you have agencies like HSI primarily leading the effort to try to rescue those victims in order to hold accountable anyone who may be responsible. But it's something that, it doesn't get a lot of attention, particularly because a lot of these investigations happen behind the scenes. There's another element where oftentimes investigators will try to protect the privacy of victims, obviously for good reason, but it certainly is a very sinister threat that HSI continues to investigate coast to coast.
We should point out there have been a number of civil lawsuits, I guess, against Sean Combs. Again, no criminal charges, it's really important to point out, have been filed. This was executing 2 search warrants. Is it, Joey, is it common for if there are civil cases that would trigger a Department of Homeland Security investigation?
Not necessarily and not at all. However, if you have civil complaints, right, civil lawsuits relating simply to that, right, the securing of compensation based upon some sexual misconduct that's alleged, that's a civil in nature. In this particular case, apparently authorities evaluated that, and from that, they certainly would have had access to the witnesses underlying those allegations, could have interviewed those witnesses, and could have determined that based upon the civil allegations, there could be criminality that may very well have led to the probable cause, which led to these warrants, which is leading to this criminal investigation.
Joey Jackson, thanks very much. Josh Campbell as well, thank you.
Let me tell you that shares in Donald Trump's social media.
Here's Brian Enton, statement from Sean P. Diddy Combs' lawyer. Statement on behalf of Sean Combs. Yesterday, there was a gross overuse of military-level force as search warrants were executed at Mr. Combs' residences. There is no excuse for the excessive show of force and hostility exhibited by the authorities or the way his children and employees were treated. Mr. Combs was never detained but spoke to and cooperated with the authorities. Despite media speculation, neither Mr. Combs nor any of his family members have been arrested, nor has their ability to travel been restricted in any way. This unprecedented ambush, paired with an advanced coordinated media presence, leads to a premature rush to judgment of Mr. Combs and is nothing more than a witch hunt based on meritless accusations made in a civil lawsuit. There has been no findings of criminal or civil liability with any of these allegations. Mr. Combs is innocent and will continue to fight every single day to clear his name, says Aaron Dwyer, Diddy's attorney. Now, the thing is, given how the Department of Homeland Security moves, okay, I don't think it's meritless. Like, I as much as I shit on the federal agencies on a regular basis, as much as I criticize them, they must have meritless lawsuit that he settled in like a week. Yeah. They must have ultimately seen enough information from the civil litigation, if you recall, that was launched against Diddy like a couple months back, that he tried to settle as quietly as he possibly could, which is impossible when you're fucking P. Diddy, that must have triggered law enforcement to at least get search warrants, which again, not meritless, can't be meritless, because like, especially in a situation this high profile with a very wealthy person, you're like, the judges are gonna look at the evidence presented to offer search warrants, right? This isn't like fucking FISA court. This is not happening behind closed doors, and you know, judges are like just signing off in another circumstance where they easily would offer search warrants to local police on an active investigation, like in the Breonna Taylor situation, for example, right? For like a no-knock warrant. Like, this is a high-profile person, and these are federal law enforcement agencies, which means that the standard for evidence is probably going to be pretty fucking high. It's similar to the Trump case in some respects, where, like, remember when they raided Mar-a-Lago and everyone was like, whoa, what the fuck? Like, this is meritless. Like, no, I don't think, no matter how political the law enforcement agencies might be in this circumstance, like the federal agencies will be in this circumstance, there has to be a pretty fucking high bar of evidence to clear for them to have enough for them to at least justify being able to raid his residences to find additional evidence. Like, it's just, they don't just like sign off on it for bullshit is what I mean. It's a lot of resources being used, as you're right, chatter, that said that's a lot of used resources, not just for bullshit, even though cops do fucking use a lot of resources. Like, they SWAT randomly and often, and it's bad and it's wrong, and I mean, it's illegal for a reason, but like, it still happens. But like, my point is, there must have been enough in the civil litigation that caused them to go to a federal judge and ask for a search warrant. Diddy's team emailed me their statement. The good news for Diddy is that there is already a proposed class action for him from a guy who got his door kicked in during an LA public corruption investigation, the DWP1. The key caveat for class membership is his surveillance cameras must have been disabled during the raid. Aaron Dwyer hasn't been involved in Diddy's civil cases, and his sudden presence as Diddy's lead lawyer, the guy who put his names on the statements, is an indication that Diddy's team understands that this is a big fucking deal. Dwyer is a LA federal defense guy. I think my Toronto Today interview best nails what's happening with Diddy. He is not charged with a crime, and the feds have no authority to restrict his movement. Their only authority to contact his jet would be if they had a search warrant specifically targeting it. There is really zero info about this investigation in the news, but Diddy's team still complains about advanced coordinated media presence, apparently based on the fact that TV news crews learned about a gigantic raid on a celebrity's mansion and decided to report it. Yeah, dude, if you have fucking military gear in Holmby Hills, one of the most expensive real estate markets in Los Angeles, perhaps the world, right, in a celebrity mega mansion. Because like when you do a fucking military raid in the Holmby Hills, you're blocking access to like famous people. You're blocking access to like the Hadids going home. You know what I mean? Like the Hadid family lives there. The fucking Kardashians used to live there. You know what I mean? Like that's gonna be news